This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Rajni Jain. On behalf of agricultureinformation.com, I like to welcome you all to this online meeting. Please take a moment to review the guidelines for this online meeting posted in the chat window. I now request the moderator, Mr. Lakshmipathy, to introduce the speaker and start the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rajni. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Lakshmipathy and I will be moderating this meeting. Agricultureinformation.com likes to welcome to this meeting Professor Dr. Kumaraswamy S., Professor and Dean of Faculty of Agriculture in Sri Sri University, Cuttack, Odisha. Dr. Kumaraswamy will be speaking on the topic Integrity of Soil Ecosystem Services, Social Construct Perspectives. I now request the speaker to begin.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Umapati, and thank you all participants, those who are participating in today's discussion. I'll be speaking on integrity of soil ecosystem services, the social construct perspective. This is invariably based on the observations what I have seen in the agricultural landscape and the farmers' practices leading to certain activities which has led to the erosion of the social construct and also the knowledge base, which has been one of the cause of concern for loss of soil ecosystem services from agricultural landscapes. Why we have to think
Dr. Kumaraswamy? Participants, are you hearing anything?
No, Mr. Lakshmipathy.
Yes, sir.
No, sir. No.
Nothing we're hearing.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Kumaraswamy, we're not able to hear you. Your audio is off. Can you hear us, Dr. Kumaraswamy?
Mr. Lakshmipathy, I think he has got disconnected.
Looks like he is not able to move the slide or what. Participants, please hold on. Our organizers are checking with him.
can you hear me now?
We can hear you, but we have lost your presentation.
Yeah, I will just bring it back because the reason is there was a electricity breakdown just now because there was an internet problem. I just
you can share your
put
screen.
it back.
Share
Yeah,
your
I will just share it. Can you see the screen now?
Yeah, put it in a slideshow mode, sir. Yes.
Okay. I will start again because of the problem. I'm
Please check
sorry
whether
for.
it's moving, Dr. Kumaraswamy. Please check whether
Sorry,
the slides are moving. Please check whether the slides are moving. You can go to the second slide to see whether it is moving.
it's moving.
Yes.
It's
Okay.
moving.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I will. I apologize for the disconnect. I will start again, and today I will be speaking on integrity of soil ecosystem services, which is typically linked to the social construct of a particular agricultural landscape where you have a mosaic of the farmers. So I will try to explain a little bit about the social construct perspective, how that can be utilized to regenerate the soil ecosystem services in a particular landscape. In the modern agriculture, we know that most of the practices what we are practicing in that particular landscape is they are not sustainable. They have been cause for concern in relation to the loss of inheritability of the soils, which is directly linked to the loss of biological integrity. When you lose the biological integrity, definitely it will affect the soil quality and also the soil health. These two parameters are very much important when it comes to the keeping the productivity of the soil or to produce a crop. That is one of the reasons most of the agricultural landscape, the farmers are not aware of how the biological integrity has been lost for a period of time due to the chemical farming. That is what we call increased degradative factors or imbalanced regenerative factors. There is an imbalance in the regeneration of the inherent ability of the soil, which is directly again linked to the biological activity of a particular soil. This biological activity cannot be same for all the soil types. We can expect to have different biological activity in different soil types. Some of the soils have a more resilient when it comes to the maintaining the balance when it comes to the soil quality and soil health. This has been one of the cause of concern, mainly because the quantity of chemicals which are being used in agricultural landscape has been increased over a period of time, which is again linked to the use of high yielding varieties which are high input responsive crop types, unlike the traditional varieties which were grown earlier on different agricultural landscape. All these varieties which were grown earlier, which they had certain benefits, at the same time they could yield the crop to an economic level, but unfortunately, just because of the modern agriculture and also the introduction of the high yielding varieties after the Green Revolution, so most of the crops that are being grown on different agricultural landscapes are high yielding varieties. They are high input responsive to crops. They also take up lots of nutrients, and then once the nutrients are taken, they will be removed from the landscape. That will result in inheritability of the soil or the fertility status of the soil. Or so also we can also it is also expecting experiencing different health risks and also the socio-ecological consequences leading to the high input management and which is requiring high financial status of the farmers. They have to pay a exorbitant amount of money to buy a fertilizer, pesticides, or certain inputs which are related to manage the high pesticide in to yielding crops. And likewise, lack of adaptive
Excuse me,
technology
Dr.
by
Kumaraswamy.
different kind of farmers which are
Sorry
existing
to
in a particular landscape.
Sorry to interrupt, Dr. Kumaraswamy.
Sorry,
I think your voice is
sorry,
cracking. You may have
I'm
to
not able to hear properly.
put off your camera. You may have to put off your camera and let's go only with the audio. You can kindly put off your camera and check. We'll see whether the voice is clear.
Camera is off now.
Camera, let's see now. Yes. Now you please proceed.
Okay. Okay. So as I was mentioning, the lack of adaptive technologies, which has been one of the concern. I was also involved in developing certain technologies, but unfortunately, the buying ability of farmers are very poor in Indian scenario, considering the small and marginal scale, marginal landholding, and also they do not have a buying power. Under these scenarios, how best we can integrate the sustainable technologies which was practiced earlier, so that we can bring back the ecosystem service to the normal level, and then. And recent past, there is also a concern related to the abandonment of agriculture as livelihood system, which is resulting in erosion of the generational wisdom which is being carried by the farmers, which is transferred from generation to generations. So there are situations where ancient soils, for example, sustainable future systems, where certain farmers which are having a small land holding, they have been practicing sustainable practices. They never use any chemical fertilizers or certain high input management. Under those situations, how best we can utilize those systems into agricultural practices so that we can bring back the slides are not. Okay, and having said that, there are certain ecosystems which are inherent to particular landscape. I will try to compare the soil ecosystem services which have direct related to the crop management in a particular landscape. If you try to take the left side physical indicators or identify certain physical indicators, how they compare in ecological farming and also the conventional farming, what we call as modern agricultural practices. So the first one is soil health. It is best for most crops in ecological farming, which is poor and moderate depending on the farming practices in conventional farming. In certain cases, in conventional farming, also certain sustainable agricultural practices are adapted, which are typical to particular landscape or typical to particular farmer for that matter. Under those situations, you can expect to have certain responses in conventional farming also when it comes to maintaining the soil health. Next one is soil structure, which is more important when it comes to the water holding capacity and also nutrient store capacity of a particular soil, which is better or stable in ecological farming, which is poor and destruction of the crumb structure is more in conventional farming, or compaction is more in conventional farming system. Unlike the ecological system where organic matter content is very high, you can expect to have a stable soil structure, which is more important for water holding capacity, aeration, and also the nutrient retention. Likewise, which I've already explained, water holding capacity and infiltration, which is better in ecological farming systems, and also which is typically poor and depends on the practices in particular landscape or a particular farm for that matter. And the nutrient stores and nutrient cycling, definitely it is good. Definitely it's a slow release, demand-based supply, closed nutrient cycling. Most of the nutrients will be recycled back in the ecological farming systems because most of the organic matter will be turned back into the system. So whatever the nutrients that are held in the organic matter will be released during the degradation, also mineralization process mediated by certain microbial organisms. But it is invariably it is poor in conventional farming, and this is resulting in erosion of the nutrients because of the most of the nutrients which are taken up by the high nutrient demanding type of crops, which will be removed in the biomass when the crop is harvested from a particular agricultural landscape. So when we compare these two ecological and conventional farming system, definitely we can expect to have better soil health, structure, water holding capacity, or certain physical and chemical parameters which are better in ecological farming than the conventional farming, which is typical in modern agricultural system. Likewise, the soil health, again, I will not go into that one. Again, it's very high in ecological system and poor or deteriorated in conventional farming. Likewise, beneficial microorganisms, we can also have a cumulative we can expect to have cumulative effect or synergistic effect in ecological farming. Unlike the conventional farming, we can expect to have the loss of certain functional groups, which is not common in ecological farming, where you can expect to have the multiplication of the certain beneficial group of microorganisms because of the synergistic effect, or they derive certain benefits through the quorum selection. They talk to each other. There is always a beneficial effect. So the biomass of the microbial groups which are present in a particular soil type can be high in ecological farming, which is useful when it comes to the nutrient cycling and also the release of the nutrients over a crop growth period, which is not common in conventional farming. We have to supply the nutrients through the chemical fertilizers. Likewise, disease-inducing microorganisms, we can expect a less or competitive inhibitions because of the several synergistic or beneficial microorganisms which are present in the soil, they do have a quorum sensing, they talk to each other through certain chemicals signals. So during that process, definitely there will be a suppression of the disease-causing microorganisms, so that you can expect to have less disease prevalence in ecological farming system, unlike the conventional farming system, where due to high nutrient management, the crop will have a luxuriant growth. It is more susceptible for the attack the pest and diseases. Likewise, water quality and surface water bodies, definitely you can expect to have no pollution, absorption of the excess nutrient which are released into the system just because the soil has certain buffering capacity, and also minimal leaching of nutrients due to high organic matter, so that the nutrients can be held on the organic matter, the charged particles, that is humus, which will have a high retention of the nutrients along with high water holding capacity, which is not the case when it comes to the conventional farming. There can be a large amount of application of the fertilizers. When the fertilizers are applied in a indiscriminate manner, definitely the nutrients will be accumulated in upper layers of the soil. When there is a irrigation or leaching of these excess amount of nutrients, or the pesticides or certain heavy metals which can be leached into the water bodies or deeper layers or water table, definitely you can expect a water pollution when it comes to the conventional farming systems. Likewise, carbon stores. For example, in ecological farming, you can expect to have a high diversity of the planting system. You can have a different crops being cultivated, and also the vegetation types, which can be seasonal, and also it can be annual, it can be perennial in nature. Depending on the type of crops which is standing on a particular landscape, you can expect to have a high carbon store. When the carbon content is very high, definitely you can expect to have very high nutrient status of the soil, or fertility status of the soil is very high. Now, soil is also very healthy and also has a good soil quality. When you have such kind of scenarios, definitely you need not depend on addition of the excess amount of nutrient. There is a natural recycling happening, and also the nutrient cycling that is present in ecological system is always a closed nutrient cycling, because most of the nutrients will be recycled back into the system. Under those situations, you can expect to have a high carbon credits. You can also claim for the carbon credits in ecological farming systems, which is not the case in conventional farming, which is poor and also depleting type. Likewise, microbial biomass, the total amount of microbial activity which is present in a ecological farming will be very high, irrespective of the functional groups. When you have such kind of system, definitely you can have a high biological activity, or faster degradation of the organic matter, and then faster release the nutrients which are held in organic form, which is not the case in conventional farm. Because of the high application of the nutrients, definitely the most of the carbon that is present in the surface layer, it will be respired by the microorganisms to the carbon dioxide. All the carbon will be lost in the system. When you have such kind of scenarios, definitely soil will have poor structure, poor water holding capacity. At the same time, it will also have poor buffering capacity for the nutrient cycling. And the greenhouse gas flux, which is one of the areas which is being considered in the recent past, we can have a low or circumstantial release depending on the management practice, or which can be controlled depending on the type of organic matter you are, either it's the farm manure or compost, or the biomass, or the degraded litter form of organic matter which is being added. So depending on the type of organic matter that is added to the ecological farming system, you can definitely modulate or control the greenhouse gas flux from the such system, but which is not the case when it comes to the conventional farming, because most of the the fertilizers which are being added, definitely they will accelerate the degradation of the organic matter that is present in the soil, and it will result in the release of greenhouse gases depending on the type of the biochemical recycling of the organic matter. It can be released as a carbon dioxide, it can be released as a methane depending on the aerobic and anaerobic condition of the soil. So likewise, soil loss and sedimentary control, good soil aggregates, just because the soils which is occurring in ecological farming will have a very good soil structure, because the organic matter, or highly decomposed organic matter, acts as the binding material, so that the soil will have a good soil structure. Definitely you can expect to have a less loss of soil due to the precipitation or runoff for that matter, which is not the case again in conventional farming. Most of the soil structure is damaged, and you can also expect to have soil in conventional farming is always compact with high bulk density. Under those situations, definitely you will not have a good infiltration capacity and also the good soil structure. The last point is biodiversity value, that's above ground. definitely the diversity which is occurring in different agro systems which are typical to ecological farming. So you can have very high biodiversity when it comes to cropping types or crop types which are seasonal, annual, or perennial types. Definitely you can have a lot many variable types of biodiversity you can expect. When you have such kind of biodiversity, you can also introduce functional diversity for that matter. You can also have nitrogen fixing type of plant species. You can also have certain plants which can support the pollinators. They can also control certain diseases. Also, they can be habitat for certain natural predators, which is the case. That is the reason ecological farming seems to have certain benefits when it comes to protecting the ecosystem services at the above ground level or also the below ground level. So, which is not the case in again conventional farming system. Most of the farmers, those who are participating, you are aware now. Most of the agricultural landscape, what we have right now, they're all monoculture types. There's only one type of crop is being cultivated. There is no diversity, and most of the buffer diversity which was kept in a particular landscape, which is being removed right now because of the monoculture. There is a selective cultivation of the crops and selective utilization of the crops in particular agricultural landscape. Under those situations, you can expect to have high economic damage when it comes to protecting the ecosystem services which are typical to particular landscape, which I will come to later stage when I end the talk. What's the benefit of having such kind of scenarios? And likewise, below ground indicators, the functional diversity is very high. You can expect to have very high synergetic microorganisms which can be heterotrophs, which are degrading type. They degrade the organic matter which is recycled into the system. At the same time, there are certain groups of microorganisms which have ability to fix the nitrogen, which have ability to mobilize the nutrients effectively. So which is very effective in the ecological farming system, and which is again poor on the recouping ability of the conventional farming system. When it comes to the below ground biological diversity is very less. That means to say you are losing the ecosystem services which are typical to particular agricultural landscape. The quality of products, for example, agricultural products that are produced, either it's cereals, pulses, fruits, or any type of crop produce which is coming from the ecological farming seems to be having high nutritive value, seed quality, and less genetic segregation. So it is common thing right now. The produce which is coming from the organic farming system, which is again natural. People sometimes use different connotation for that. People say organic farming, sometimes they say natural farming, sometimes they say ecological farming, or sometimes they also use the biodynamic farming. All are typically related to the less usage or no usage of the chemical fertilizers. Under those situations, whatever the produce we get it will have a high quality, and people prefer to use it because it will have a less chemicals in it, just because there is no use of the chemical fertilizers or pesticides to in the process of crop management or production of the crop for that matter. So which is poor in conventional farming. You all know that the quality of produce which is coming from the conventional farming is not good enough. It seems to contain residues of pesticides or high amount of certain metals or high amount of certain elements which are not good for consumption. Or when you consume such kind of foods which having high residues of pesticide, it will have a high health risk for that matter. That aesthetic and cultural value, I think most of the farmers, those who are coming from the rural areas, definitely you understand that cultural values, how cultural values are linked to the ecosystem services or aesthetics of the particular agricultural landscape. If you go back to the system, you will visualize how the cultural values are embedded into the agricultural practices in a particular agricultural landscape, which is commonly practiced by most of the farmers which are present in that particular locality, or the mosaic of the agriculture practices done in different forms. So which seems to be high in ecological farming and
Dr. Kumaraswamy, we have lost your audio, please. Dr. Kumaraswamy? Participants, I think you're also not able to hear anything, no?
Yes, sir.
Yes. We are not also not hearing. He lost his audio.
Yes. Dr. Kumaraswamy? Are you able to hear us, please? Okay, participants, we are sorry. The organizers will be in touch with the speaker. Dr. Kumaraswamy? I think the speaker is encountering a lot of networking issues in his region due to the bad weather. Please hold on. Let's check with the speaker. Dr. Kumaraswamy? Participants, he has logged out only. The speaker has logged out only to log in again. Please hold on. I hear that the speaker is restarting his device. Please hold on. Dr. Kumaraswamy, please put it in the slideshow mode, please. Mr. Surya Prabhu, can I request you to put off your mic? There are already some bandwidth problem here. Okay, thank you. Organizer, I think he needs to go out to only the slideshow mode, that's all, no?
Mr. Lakshmipati, for the speaker, it's taking time to connect actually. There seems to be some net issue.
We are able to see the screen also. He needs
Yeah.
to put it in the slideshow mode. That's all. I think he's searching where it has to be done. You can please guide him.
Mr. Kumaraswamy, you are able to hear us? Dr. Kumaraswamy, can you hear us?
Mr. Lakshmipati's mic is not working. His laptop is got stuck. He's trying to restart it.
Oh, I see.
From desktop,
for the
mic is
slideshow
not
mode.
working. He tried logging in from desktop. Mic is not working. He's restarting his laptop. Just 2 to 3 minutes. He'll start it.
Okay.
Okay, your laptop has got started, sir.
What is the status, please, organizers?
Mr. Lakshmipati, his laptop seems to be taking time to restart.
No, I see. He is logged out now.
Dr. Kumaraswamy, you can share your screen. Sir, you are able to hear us? Dr. Kumaraswamy? Sir, we are not able to hear you.
Dr. Kumaraswamy, we can't hear you.
Dr.
Hello.
Kumaraswamy, yes, Dr. Kumaraswamy, can you hear us?
I can hear you people. Can you people hear me?
Yes, now just now we can hear you, but please go for your presentation.
Yeah.
You can share your screen. Yeah, please go over to the slideshow mode.
Can you tell me where I stopped?
Exactly this slide only, right, Mr.
This slide.
Lakshmipati?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I think this is the one already I've spoken, I think.
Yes, yes. Next slide. Yeah, this is the one.
This is the one.
No, this is already finished.
Okay, I'll go to the next slide. If something happens,
Yes.
it's going to be a problem again. I hope it will not happen. Yeah, so continue with the discussion. We were discussing about the different parameters or indicators which we consider when we talk about ecosystem services. So we discussed most of the physical, biological, and also the environmental related aspect, which is common to the particular agricultural landscape, let us talk a little bit about the socio-economic capital or human dimensions when it comes to protecting the ecosystem services, which are typical to different forms within a landscape with a different mosaic of the agricultural activities. And in those scenarios, what kind of socio-economic capital we can expect to have, how these human dimensions can be utilized to in the ecological farming and also the conventional farming vis-a-vis protecting the ecosystem services. So in ecological farming system, most of the time it's a holistic approach, mixed production and then private economy, which is typical to particular farm, which is transparent consumer attitudes on nutritional quality, no pollution, conservation of the soils and ecological elements, which are typically the integrity of the ecological functions or the functionality when it comes to the ecosystem services is typically good in ecological farming system, which is based on the social capital, which is derived from the wisdom which is carried from generation to generation. Unlike in conventional farming, it is poor and also blind followers. For example, if a farmer is trying to grow a high-yielding varieties, the farmer who is next to that particular farm, he will also try to grow the same crop. He will not analyze what kind of risk involved, what kind of market-driven crop cultivation is happening in that particular landscape, and with less technical skills and also the activities which are typically followed in that kind of scenarios, you can expect to have loss of ecosystem services because of the blind following or blind adaptation of certain practices which are consumer driven or market driven. And at those situations, we would expect to have the inherent ability of the soils will be lost or eroded over a period of time or subsequent cropping seasons. So such is not the scenario when it comes to the ecological farming, where the human dimensions or the ecological socio-economic capital which is being utilized to a larger extent so that the ecosystem services are protected. Likewise, agro-to-ecotourism for that matter, which is typically very high in ecological farming because of the acidity and also the biodiversity index we can expect to, high biodiversity index we can expect to have when it comes to ecological farming systems, which is not the case, which is again for high cost for restoration of the degraded landscape, and they will not have that aesthetic value unlike the ecological farming system. When it comes to vulnerability to climate change, which is minimal, they are all highly buffered in ecological farming system because of the high biodiversity which is existing in the ecological farming system. At least one functional species will be combating the climate change scenarios. You can always expect to have a yield from the ecological farming system, unlike the conventional farming system, where you can expect to have monocultures or crop which are highly susceptible for climate change scenarios. Either it's a high temperature or drought scenarios, definitely you will not be able to get a crop. Definitely under those scenarios, the crop failure can be very, very high, and they will not have a resilient system where a crop can be harvested, unlike an ecological system where the diversity or plant diversity is very, very high. You can expect to have a yield. So when we talk about these ecosystem services, what kind of integrity when it comes to the integrity of the biocomplexity of ecosystem services at farm scale to landscape scale? The integrity of the biocomplexity or biological integrity is different in farm scale in different farms because of the different type of crops which are being grown, which is typical to the knowledge base which is available in that particular landscape farm system for that matter. When we take that into the landscape scale, where you will have different farms within a particular piece of land, under those situations we need to consider ecological and economic and social considering also the biodiversity matrices. So in those situations, I've indicated certain ecological parameters which can be typical to a farm at the same time, which is again applicable to landscape scale. The land use pattern, cropping diversification, farming integrity, transboundary seed banks, soil health, quality and fertility, external inputs, renewable resource use, regional environment, risk buffer capacity. All these parameters are typical to the ecological parameters which can contribute for integrity of biocomplexity of ecosystem services at farm scale, which is in turn related to landscape in a larger perspective. So when you talk about economic, the land productivity, the productive capacity of land itself is more important depending on the soil fertility status in different management systems. And the yield stability, you cannot have a similar kind of yield levels in different cropping seasons or subsequent years depending on the fertility of the status of the soil when you practice conventional practices to a larger extent, where high input management is a common activity, and also the use of the high yielding varieties, unlike the ecological farming, where traditional varieties are commonly used, which require less application of the nutrients or the inputs for that matter. So the cost benefit ratio, profitability, market linkages, regional economy, subsidies, land value appreciation, all these things play into the economic perspective when it comes to maintaining the integrity of the ecosystem services of a particular farm. If a farmer is a rich farmer who is having a large land holding, definitely he will try to practice certain activities which can protect the ecosystem services, unlike the conventional farming system. When it comes to the social construct, the transboundary knowledge sharing, there are farmers, they carry many years of experience in terms of the wisdom carried over from generation to generation. That wisdom is recycled back to the future practices. That wisdom can be shared between the farmers at transboundary level from region to region. So likewise, network reciprocity, meaning a farmer is practicing certain activity, that practice can be shared with other farming. The next farmer can also get benefited by utilizing the knowledge which is transferred from one farmer to other farm. Likewise, barter exchange of resources. There are traditional varieties available with one particular farm that can be shared with other farmers, so that the protection of the traditional varieties is possible from one farm to another farm, so that that kind of barter sharing of certain traditional varieties can be carried to a larger extent in a landscape level. Under those situations, definitely you can expect a high protection of the ecosystem services due to the protection of the biodiversity itself, that will have a indirect impact on the soil ecosystem services for that matter. Likewise, cultural coherence of social political leaders or ethics, or certain traditional systems which are available in rural areas, or forming social matrices. You can expect to have those knowledge which is present in particular community can be shared between the community, across the communities. Under those situations, definitely the knowledge which is social construct which is available in particular community can be transferred to the other communities. And when it comes to the biodiversity matrix, the biobanks, the biodiversity corridors, rare and endangered species, functional diversity, and maintenance of certain redundant species also within the landscape has certain benefits when it comes to acting as a habitat for the certain natural predators or the pollinators for that matter. If you are coming from a farming family, definitely you can expect to have certain patch of land is left in a particular agricultural landscape which is not cultivated, which has a different plant species. Either are certain they do carry certain functions, they do add value in terms of pollinators, habitat for the pollinators, and also habitat for the predators. Under those situations, definitely you can expect to have ecosystem services protected, and then they're all added back to the system, which can be beneficial at farm level and also at the landscape level. Such kind of scenarios we have to look at in a different perspective in a particular landscape. What we are looking at right now here is we are trying to look at the economic parameters. So that is the cause for concern, because most of the time when we link economic benefit to the agricultural activities, definitely you can expect to have loss or erosion of the ecosystem services from the agricultural landscape. That's the current scenario right now. That's the reason we are talking about the integrity of the ecosystem services, which is completely removed from the system. That's the reason we have to practice chemical farming. Under those situations, I have already explained what kind of problems you can expect to have. So these are all academic in nature. I will not try to speak on it, but I will not elaborate these things, but definitely I will try to talk about the indices that can be utilized at different levels, at either it's a farm level or landscape level. These indices can be utilized to derive certain results or develop certain database, so that we can collectively work on particular aspects, so that how the ecosystem services can be assessed and the ecosystem can be restored by application of these indices. These are all academic in nature. I will not go into the details of it, but definitely these indices can be utilized farm to landscape level, so that the evaluation criteria which can be utilized so that the ecosystem services can be assessed for their integrity or their connectedness, so that a practice can be suggested to the farmers so that the restoration of ecosystems can happen at different levels. Though these indices are already being applied or utilized at different landscapes, so that you can expect to have expect to restore the ecosystem services at farm scale or landscape level. And these are all the indexes that are being utilized. And I will try to say indices, I will try to relate to the element of sustainability. In the left side, if you see the land, soil, water, biodiversity, energy balance, and also human health. These are all the parameters which we discussed earlier when it comes to when we are comparing with ecological farming and also the conventional farming, how best these indices can be utilized at land level for depending on the measurable parameters, the farm size, small land holding or frequency in a landscape, and the usage of the indices. As I was mentioning earlier, there are several indices. These are all the two indices can be utilized so that the applicability scale, that is at the regional level or landscape ecology scale. So if we use all these indices, will also generate certain sustainability parameters for land, soil, water, biodiversity, or energy balance, or human health at a farm level, at regional level, and also the landscape level. So that once we have certain knowledge about the generating the sustainability indices for the land, soil, water, or biodiversity, or energy balance, or human health, definitely we will come to know what's the integrity of the ecosystem services in that particular agricultural landscape. Once you have such kind of knowledge or database available, definitely we can plan and also propose the new way of management of the crops so that the ecosystem services can be restored. I will not go into the details if they're all more academic in nature. Definitely these parameters can be utilized to assess the certain aspect which are related to the restoration of the ecosystem services, either at the above ground level and also at the below ground level when we talk about the soil. So here again, elements of sustainability, social capital, political representation. Already I have discussed a little bit about that in the previous slide. Again, these parameters can also be utilized to bring in the sustainability when it comes to the farming activity. The social capital is the one which is under threat right now because the agricultural activity is not taken up by the next generation of the farmers or the young or youth for that matter. So all the wisdom that is carried in the farmers, which is not being transferred to the younger generation, all the knowledge, all the wisdom, all the traditional knowledge which is available, so which is lost from the agricultural landscape or farming system itself. The reason here is the next or youths are not coming forward to take up the knowledge which is available to the farmer and then progress it. So that's where the dimension is the society. So at societal level, the social construct which was available, the social capital which was available, the knowledge which was available, which is completely lost in the system. That's the scenario right now. Most of the cases, the farmers are toiling with the modern agriculture system where usage of high inputs, either it's chemicals or fertilizers or pesticides or herbicides for that matter, they're unaware how to utilize these high input management of the crop or in high yielding cropping systems. That's where the most of the knowledge which is carried by the farmer is totally lost. That's what we're talking about, the social construct. That is one aspect which we need to take into consideration so that the ecosystem services can be restored back and we don't have any serious concern in the later stages. The point I'm trying to make here is the future is in agriculture. If we do not protect the social constructs of the social wisdom that is which is available with the farmers, definitely we will not be able to progress the agricultural activity. Definitely there will be time may come where agriculture may collapse if we do not protect this, because high input management is not sustainable, which is already the farmers are facing a lot of problems when it comes to purchase for all the chemicals or pesticides to manage a crop, which is going to be reversed back. So most of the youths, which are those who are studying agriculture, definitely they will try to go back to agriculture, try to practice the ecological farming system rather than the conventional farming system. Likewise, infrastructure and financial stability, which is one of the areas a lot of infrastructure is required in agriculture sector. And you know that electricity is one of the major requirement in the agriculture sector right now. The most of the agricultural activities are tube well based right now. Most of the surface water bodies are dried up in agricultural landscape. There are two elements, resources which are totally gone from the agricultural landscape. Only soil. Most of the soils are deteriorated. They are not healthy. Without fertilizer application, you cannot harvest a crop. At the same time, the water resources which are available and the particular agricultural landscape is totally lost right now. And the restoration of these agriculture water bodies is not easy. Most of the agriculture practice are depending on the tube wells or the underground water bodies. So that is where electricity is also one of the concern right now. Most of the farming sector is suffering because of the poor availability of electricity. They do not have a good access for the electricity. Likewise, several infrastructures are required in agricultural sector, and these are all the indices we can apply, and then we can also assess the integrity of the farming activity or the sustainability of the farming activity at farm level, and also the dimension also we can attach at different levels. Likewise, food security. I will not discuss about it again. The sufficiency of the food is very much required. The point I'm trying to make here is the youngsters should really come forward to take farming as a hobby or career option, so that definitely 10 years down the lane you will be a good support for the society when it comes to providing food security or also the resources which are required for the society or by the society. Likewise, health of the agroecology. So right now, the overall health of the farming sector is not good right now. If you adapt the ecological farming system, definitely you can expect to have a better quality of the crop produced. Though the yield levels are very less, definitely you can maintain the integrity of the ecosystem services and also the functions of the agricultural landscape. These are all the indices. You can use it depending on the farm level or regional level or the dimension you can attach, either it's ecological or economic levels. So the usage of these indicators vary from researcher to researcher. The type of the research method you will utilize or the measurable parameters you will try to generate or database related to particular aspect. It is inherent to particular researcher. I will not go into detail. This is more of an academic in nature, but definitely it has utility when it comes to hobbyists to utilize the social construct which is available with a farmer or in a particular agricultural landscape. I will try to skip these 4 slides. These are related to policy matters, so I will not go into these 4 slides depending on the time constraint what we have. Due to the technical problems. I will go to the next slide. This has again a relevance when it comes to understanding the mutually inclusive factors in resilient biocomplexity of a farm. What we're talking about here is recently it has become a jargon for everybody to talk about the smart agriculture, climate resilient farming system. These are all the jargon words everybody is using, but the main problem with these kind of agriculture is the knowledge related to the resource capitals, human capital, crop husbandry system, and also the market awareness within a farm or within an agricultural landscape is obscure, with the database which is not developed in a nice way or systematic way, so the data can be utilized to understand what kind of resource capital is available in a particular farming system, so that we can design a resilient farming system or resilient crop management practices, so that the farming system is ecological in nature, which is not conventional when it comes to the input usage. So we are talking about resource capital again. I said healthy soil-centric resources, fertility and productivity. We don't have a database because agriculture is very diverse and now the soil is highly heterogeneous. We cannot make a assessment of the soil fertility or soil quality or soil health with one parameter. So because soil is very heterogeneous in nature, at the same time the management practices that are used at different forms are different. These management practices will influence the soil genetic resources, fertility and also productivity. So we cannot have a one fits all model with one set of data and try to analyze, so that this can be utilized, this can be conclusively derived, saying that this is the resilient form, this kind of practice is also suitable in a particular landscape. So that's where the mutually inclusive, all these factors are mutually inclusive. You need to understand all these 4 parameters together what you say, the approach should be more towards understanding each parameter, each form level, so that you can come out with a solution saying that this is the best practice for this particular form, depending on the type of resource capital which is available, and also human knowledge which is available in terms of the social construct, which is again influencing the social behavior and the cultural values. So when we talk about resource capital, again, the buffer zones of critical biodiversity conservation. And if you go back to the agricultural, if you imagine the agricultural landscape, earlier most of the agricultural landscape had buffer zones. There are small patches of lands were conserved or shared between the farms, and all the biodiversity which was existing was in that patch was natural biodiversity, which had a high biodiversity in terms of the annuals, perennials, and also the tree species for that matter. All these acted as a buffer zones for protecting the ecosystem services. Right now, if you go and stand in the agricultural landscape, you see the barren land. You see all the areas being cultivated. There are no buffer zones. Under those situations, definitely the resource capital will be very less. The farming system is not resilient for any kind of disasters, either it's climate related or human made or the conventional farming type of activities. So when it comes to human capital, the traditional knowledge, what I was talking about all the time, the traditional knowledge which is not protected right now, and the social leadership is also not good in the rural areas or agricultural landscape. Likewise, the farm level infrastructure and also the above ground and below ground biodiversity which is available in a particular landscape, the human health risk proofing, and everybody knows that rural areas, most farmers are also suffering due to the health risk, mainly because of the usage of a lot of chemicals in agricultural activity. So the policy issues, it's a long time process, it will not happen overnight, so they have to depend on the database that is coming from a particular agricultural landscape. Under those scenarios, definitely the policy changes when it comes to protecting the traditional agricultural practices existing in a particular landscape. That is also one of the areas which everybody is talking about, to go back to ecological farming system, not knowing the kind of database or knowledge which is available in a particular agricultural landscape. Likewise, adaptive changes in vulnerability context. You all know that drought is a prevalent scenario right now. Precipitation is very, very erratic. The rainfall patterns are not good enough, and the drought scenarios are increasing. Under those situations, what kind of disaster management activities are available? That kind of knowledge is not available. So once we have such kind of scenarios, definitely you'll be able to bring in resilience or build a resilience to the biocomplexity which is available at different farm level. Likewise, crop husbandry, I will not talk about it. More the traditional variety, less the risk. So once you have a more traditional variety or high cropping pattern or high diversity of crops in a particular landscape, definitely if one crop fails, there is a yield coming from the other crops, which is not the case in conventional farming, where it is monoculture or only one type of crop is cultivated. Either it is if crop fails because of the natural disasters or poor management system or poor usage of the inputs, definitely the farmers will not be able to harvest a crop. Under those situations, definitely the farmer will suffer and he will not have any ability to harvest a crop. So you will risk proofing is very, very high when it comes to the highly diverse cropping patterns, which is typical to the ecological farming system, unlike the conventional farming system where risk proofing is not at all possible. So likewise, I have also indicated precision farming or controlled farming. What we are talking about, precision farming is usage of the inputs in a precise manner to match with the cropping demand or different when you have a different crops in your landscape, you design or you apply the nutrients which are matching to the demand of the crop so that you can still harvest an economic yield. But at the same time, we do not have such kind of buying ability that farmers to adopt the precision farming at agriculture level. There are farmers, they are already practicing precision farming, which is typical to usage of certain technologies when it comes to micro irrigation or precise application of the nutrients through the micro irrigation system or delivery system which is available right now. There are different gadgets are available or technology is also available. At the same time, these technologies are not cost effective. The poor farmers do not have an access to such kind of technologies because they do not have the buying power, the capital, the financial or economic levels are very, very poor. The farmer has no access for such kind of technologies, definitely the precision farming will not be a scenario in Indian agriculture, depending on the small and marginal land holding which is largest, which is about almost 60 to 70%. So when it comes to market awareness, most of the market force analysis, we don't know exactly how it operates right now. We all have already, we all know that farmers are agitating when it comes to the market reform bill, which is recently done. At the same time, the matching of the crops to ensure the risk of low price for crop produce. In such scenarios, if you try to grow a particular crop, depending on the market demand, definitely you're going to erode the soil fertility status. If you try to grow a crop which is high nutrient demanding type, if you try to continuously grow the same crop, definitely your inherent ability of the soil or the soil fertility will be declining over a period of cropping seasons. If you try to match different type of crops at the same time, you can derive the economic benefits. Definitely you're protecting the ecosystem services which are at below ground level. At the same time, above ground level, economic yield harvest can also be beneficial to the farmer. So how best we can utilize, or how best we can manipulate the resource capital, the human capital, and crop inventory or crop management practices linking to the market awareness of the farmer will also build in resilient farming system. When we have all these four factors mutually inclusive, and if you have the general database which is available, if the farmer has a better knowledge about these database or the factors, definitely he can work through to maintain the biocomplexity of the farming system, so that the farming will slowly turn back into this ecological farming, so that the farm becomes more resilient for any ecological disasters. So in those situations, you can expect to have this. The model which I proposed, and it's a published article. Actually, I have taken only one picture from that article. This is about sustainable agricultural landscape and ecosystem services model, that I call it a sales model. In these situations, when you go and stand in a agricultural landscape, you will see 100 farmers are within that agricultural landscape, are growing different crops. It's a mosaic of farms where one farmer is cultivating a particular type of crop, another farmer is growing different type of crops. So in that scenario, there are farmers, those who are defaulters, meaning they are degradative in nature. They are involved in the practice of certain activities that is degradative to the ecosystem services in that particular activity. That is the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4, 5, and 6. In the phase 1, lack of conservation behavior in institutions. If you don't have a knowledge base which is available in a culturally and economically diverse farming communities in a particular agricultural landscape, definitely you can expect to have degradation of the ecosystem services in that particular landscape. In the phase 2, if you try to educate the farmers, if you make them aware of certain aspect or benefits related to the conservation of certain practices within that particular landscape, they definitely they will be willing to participate. The willingness of voluntary conservation is in offset mechanisms. Offset mechanisms, certain incentives you provide to the farmers so that they will participate in conserving certain traditional cropping patterns or cultivation of certain traditional crop varieties or cultivars or wild races for that matter. So that will have certain incentives to provide to the farmers, so they will bring back the traditional practices of their farming system, so that it will result in decrease in degradation due to behavioral changes in stakeholders. They know that they are getting certain incentives to practice certain traditional agricultural activities. Under those scenarios, definitely you will expect to have a education being increased amongst the farmers. Once you have that kind of scenarios built to the system, definitely in phase 3, conservation is populate. The people with such kind of knowledge will increase. Once you have more number of farmers trying to practice the traditional agricultural practices, definitely you can have initiation of offset mechanism and stakeholder awareness, so that you can provide certain incentives for them to, in a framework where they will become a participating action research, so that they will understand the rules and regulations related to the participatory action research, so that they will start practicing the conservation agriculture or traditional way of practicing agriculture or traditional methods of crop management system. So in the phase 4, you will have decreasing exploitative use due to defined biobanking rules. Biobanking means increasing the biodiversity of a particular landscape. Earlier, if the farmer was growing only one crop, if you bring in education or if you provide him the incentives to increase the biodiversity or crop diversity within a particular landscape, definitely the diversity will increase. The biobanking, the benefits related to increasing the biodiversity or the crop diversity within a particular farm or landscape will. Under those situations, you can designate biodiversity hotspots and evolution of the biobanks. So you will expect to have the biodiversity hotspot available in a particular landscape. Under those situations, definitely these biobanks which are being preserved or conserved by a certain group of farmers, definitely you can expect to have ecosystem services restored for that particular landscape. If you see that figure, red one is a defaulter who is practicing monoculture or degradative agricultural activities. The green ones are the ones they are conservationists or ecological farmers. So meaning over a period, if you bring in the education and also the incentives or offset mechanism integrated into the agricultural activities or agricultural landscape, definitely the farmers will be willing to take up that kind of activities so that the conservation farming or ecological farming will increase over a period of time. So again, same is the phase 5. You can see the visible change or behavior amongst the farmers. They have all adopted the ecological farming or conservation farming or conservation agriculture. Under those scenarios, definitely the ecosystem services will increase. If you see the increasing ecosystem services from phase 1 to phase 7, definitely the ecosystem services will be conserved or increased over a period of time. This phase 7 is the network reciprocity, meaning all the farmers, those who are practicing a conservation agriculture or ecological farming, they share the knowledge between the farmers. Once the sharing of the knowledge between the farmers happens, that's where the network reciprocity, network amongst themselves, they try to share the knowledge between the farmers. Under those situations, definitely the defaulters will starts coming down. You can expect to have more farmers adopting the conservation farming or traditional way of integrating the traditional variety into the farming system. At the same time, if you have such kind of scenarios increased in a different agricultural landscape, definitely the ecosystem services will increase or protected. When the farmers are occurring, the landscapes are contiguous in nature, they are connected to each other, definitely these ecosystem services can be shared amongst these agricultural landscape. If you have such kind of scenarios, definitely the agriculture will be more profitable. At the same time, you bring in the healthy way of managing the crop. At the same time, you protect the soils, you protect the water resources, you also protect the natural pollinators and also protect the natural predators which are really relevant for the agricultural activities. So when we talk about the regeneration of the soils, so I have already explained the sustainable agricultural landscape and ecosystem services. This model typically links to the offset mechanism. These offset mechanisms typically certain tools or policy changes and also the incentive mechanism for the farmers to adopt highly biodiverse cropping patterns. Instead of having a one particular monocropping system, rather than that, he can practice bring in high diversity into the cropping patterns so that the ecosystem services are protected in a contiguous landscape. So I've tried to define what biobanks means. It's a conserved repository of plant diversity hotspot in a landscape. And if you are coming from the farming background, definitely you will know that if you go back to your fathers or forefathers period, in a particular agricultural landscape, there was a patch of land always kept uncultivated, which had a high biodiversity of the plants. Either it's a wild type of plants which are annuals, seasonal, and also perennial tree species. So all these patch was considered a biobank because they had certain benefits for their agricultural activities as a habitat for the natural predators, and also they provided the biomass, they provided the leaf litter which can be utilized on the farm, and also they also acted as a habitat for the pollinators, natural pollinators. Likewise, coevolution, that is a bilateral sharing of ingenuity to derive mutual benefit from community activity or conservation initiatives. The knowledge which is carried, that's what I mentioned about the social construct. The social construct are available in different social matrices, different. Each farming community has a different kind of social knowledge or wisdom which is typical to particular type of community. In India, we have a different caste system, different community system. We have a different diversity in the culture, in cultural values or cultural system which are embedded into agriculture sector. If we can bring in co-evolution of these cultural values and cultural social construct which is available within these communities, if you can bring in together, if you can build a network reciprocity amongst these communities, the knowledge which is available in these communities will be shared with the other communities. One such kind of engineers sharing of the ingenuity happens between the communities, definitely we can expect to have better agricultural practices which are typically traditional in nature. So likewise, network reciprocity, it's a mutually agreeable equity-based participation of farming community irrespective of socio-economic status. As I mentioned previously, irrespective of the cultural values, irrespective of the socio-economic status of the farmers, if you can bring them together to educate them amongst themselves. So share the knowledge which is in a mutually agreeable manner so that everybody derives the benefits in an equitable manner. So there is no differentiation along saying that one is benefited, the other one is not. It's bringing the equity into sharing of the knowledge. Definitely the network reciprocity will be very, very high. The knowledge sharing between one type of agriculture farming community to the other type of farming community. Likewise, if you can bring in offset mechanisms, which are policy related aspect of it, so the government can bring in certain policy changes so that they can provide compensatory or a counterbalance approach to restore the original state of the ecosystem. So you bring in certain incentives or subsidies or certain benefits or certain awards or certain rewards to the farmer, those who are practicing ecological farming or traditional way of farming, so that the ecosystem services in that particular landscape is intact. So identify those farmers, encourage those farmers to continue to have that kind of agricultural practices by providing certain benefits. Either it can be certain monetary benefits or certain awards or rewards, so that you recognize the services or the activity that is practiced by the farmer, so that can be encouraged using certain offset mechanism. It can be certain tools or policy changes, certain incentive mechanisms. Likewise, so try to encourage the farmers to participate in the active research that happens unknowingly in the farming activity, that is participatory action research, where collective research inquiry or voluntary participation action of collaborative nature with mutual benefits to the stakeholders. So all the farmers will become a researcher. They do carry not only experience when it comes to the farming activity, which is done for several years, decadal scale for that matter. The kind of knowledge which is available in the farmers, they should be part of the research activity, that is participatory action research, so that the farmer knows what is the problem, what's the difficulty, and how best that difficulty can be overcome by applying his wisdom or knowledge which he has carried over a period of time. If you utilize all the knowledge which is available with the farmer, definitely the participatory action research will have a good end result. That is also called.
Well said, Dr. Kumaraswamy. Well said, and thank you so much for your presentation and talk. Well presented also. Can we ask the participants if they have got any questions? We have got a very little time for one or two questions.
Yeah.
Or you
I will end this last slide. I will just end it. I will just finish it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So the point I was trying to make here is when we talk about all those parameters, how best we can skillfully utilize all the knowledges so that it can be applied at the location specific, make it cross system specific, and also ecology specific and social cultural demographic approach. So if you can integrate all these knowledge which is available, definitely you will be able to bring in the regenerative principles or practices into the system. Already I have explained it. I will not go into the details of it. Again, the same activity I have put in a different manner. So the point I'm trying to make here is we need to bring in regenerative principles or practices into regeneration of agriculture through the participatory action research. Unless until you utilize the social construct or social knowledge which is available with the farmers, we cannot expect to achieve in terms of protecting the ecosystem services. The need and way forward, the framework for maintaining sustainability indices that is farm to landscape, one has to look into farm level at the same time, extend it to the landscape level. Likewise, custom designed participatory action research and feedback mechanisms that should be location specific, If you bring it to the farm level and also landscape level, definitely you will get benefited. Likewise, farm scale soil nutrient and water resource data, we don't have it. So unless until we have such kind of database available, right now the technologies enables us to collect such kind of data. If we can bring in such kind of activities integrated into farming activity, the data will be collected and the data can be utilized for deriving certain knowledge base or the interpretation. Likewise, microscale methodological database to forecast climate variabilities, disaster management for that matter. Agriculture also requires disaster management. Likewise, cost-effective technology intervention, that is a challenge in Indian agriculture. I will leave it there. Likewise, custom design farm scientist forums at grassroots levels. This is not happening. Most of the time, the farmers are called to an institution where the discussion happens at academic levels. We are not trying to understand the farmers' program at grassroots level at time integrated manner. So that unless until that happens, definitely we will have a difficulty in bringing back the ecosystem service to make them sustainable. Likewise, TKS, that is traditional knowledge system, the Krishi phase, if we can integrate traditional knowledge into the Krishi phase, which are typically traditional in nature, so that the farmers' technologies can be transferred from one farm to other farm. Likewise, sparing and sharing approach, where you dedicate a particular piece of landscape so that the ecosystem services which are typically usable by the farmers or useful for the agricultural activities can be protected and sustained. Thank you very much for the patient hearing. This is all I have to say. I'm sorry about the technological issues which are very, very difficult to manage. And then thank you very much. If you have any questions, I can take questions.
Thank you, Dr. Kumaraswamy, for a very excellent and detailed presentation. Participants will also be posting the speaker's contact details in the chat window. I'm afraid we're not having time to even pose any questions also. I think we request the participants to directly write to the speaker whose details have been given in the chat window for any clarification or any further clarification. Okay, thank you. Thank you very well, Wilson. And now I like to thank Dr. Kumaraswamy on behalf of Agriculture Information for taking this time to speak with us. I now request the organizer of the meeting, Ms. Rajini Jain, to please close the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Lakshmipathy. I like to thank the speaker, Dr. Kumaraswamy, for taking the time to talk with us. I also like to thank all the participants for their time and patience. The meeting will now be closed.
Thank you.